Welcome. Good day to everyone who's joined us. Welcome to one more of the webinars in the Jamnabai Narsi Education Series. These were conceptualized by our trustee, Mr. Sujay Jairaj, very early into the lockdown. Being a visionary that he is, he realized all too well that people will need the kind of strength, the kind of information, knowledge, experience that can be shared through this medium of the webinars at this particular time of lockdown. How privileged and lucky are we? How grateful our hearts should be that our entire focus has been largely on augmenting our physical, mental, and spiritual selves. On that note, we reiterate our gratitude to Mr. Sujay Jairaj for conceptualizing these webinars and having already taken us through so many of these where speakers from myriad fields have shared their time and expertise with us, and we have benefited tremendously from the same. I'm your host, Sonali Gandhi. I'm very proud on behalf of the three Jamnabai Narsi schools to bring these webinars to your homes, to the comfort and safety of your homes, as I like to call it. Without any further ado, it's going to be my proud privilege to introduce our trustee, Mr. Sujay Jairaj, who's going to be in conversation today with the iconic figures that you are here to listen to. Mr. Sujay Jairaj is renowned for being the passionate educationist that we all respectfully admire him for. What many discover very soon is how avid a sports person he is. And then they appreciate all the more not only his aim to create state-of-the-art infrastructure for schools, but also, particularly in fact, designing and offering world-class sports facilities in the various schools. Mr. Sujay Jairaj is a tremendous sports enthusiast, a formal national level badminton player, an avid and advanced skier and founder of the Mumbai Cycling Enthusiasts, which incidentally is the world's largest cycling community with almost 19,000 members. He's also the founding committee member of Equal Streets. Mr. Sujay Jairaj's aim and focus in ensuring sporting talent is given the opportunity to bloom, and not just bloom, but realize its highest potential, has resulted in many outstanding achievements that our students have to their credit at state, national, and international levels. In fact, Mr. Sujay Jairaj continually aspires to provide opportunity and the requisite infrastructure to the community at large. It comes as no surprise then that this K-12 school leader has been recognized as the Times education icon for the last 3 consecutive years. Without any further ado, let's listen to how he leads us into conversation with our iconic guests. Over to you, Sujay bhai.
Thank you very much, Sonali ma'am. Thank you very much for the very kind words. Ronak and Hina, firstly, let me thank you for giving your valuable time for this interaction, which without a doubt is going to be highly motivational, educational, and an eye-opener in many senses. Though we don't Though we don't need an introduction for the dynamic couple, let me give everyone a quick synopsis, and I'll start with the lady. Hina Sidhu, Arjuna awardee and India's only 2-time Olympian in pistol shooting, world number 1 and world record holder in 2014, winner of 4 medals at Commonwealth Games and a hat-trick of medals at Asian Games 2010, 2014 and 2018. Ronak Pandit, gold medalist at Commonwealth Games, silver medalist at Asian Games, won over 50 international medals and over 200 national medals, with first senior national champion title won at the age of 15. Ronak, I'm going to get back to this point later. Presently, a high performance manager of Indian shooting team and coach to over a dozen international shooters and several national and state medalists. I think it's a fantastic achievement. If there was live audience, Ronak and Hina, people would be clapping out loud, and I'm sure people are clapping at their homes currently. I think, Ronak, we forgot a very important point to mention over here. He's also the coach to aspiring shooter Sujay Jairaj.
Aspiring and a very good shooter.
No, jokes apart. Uh, on a serious note, this is something terrific, Ronak and Hina. Congratulations and keep making India proud as you all have always done.
Thank you, Sujay. Thank you.
To start off with, my first question, which would be on a lighter note, to break the ice. It's without a doubt that you all are a power couple with outstanding achievements. Tell us, how did you all meet? Were you all practicing together? Were you all competing with each other? Or if I can ask in shooting terms, how did it trigger?
Yeah, I think so. We happened to be like training together. This was in 2000, way back in 2008. In fact, that was one of the international competitions where I wasn't part of the team, and I happened to see one of the team pictures, and I happened to notice Hina in the whole group. So I think it was something like definitely attraction at first sight. In 2007-8, and then as we had common friends, so we got to know each other. Then eventually we started training under the same coach. So we started interacting, we started getting to know each other. We had very similar aims and objectives from life, very driven, very motivated. So I think that's how it wasn't easy. I think initially we had more arguments than smooth talks, but I think eventually it all turned out for the good.
Yeah, both of us didn't like each other initially. We were both very arrogant for each other.
Yeah, she was the top in her field, I was the top in my event.
So the first meeting didn't go well, but eventually we got to know each other better, understand each other, and it turned out okay.
No, that's fantastic. I think Ronak and you all have, done more than okay in every sense after you all have got together. So, which is fantastic. Ronak, coming to you first, you won your senior national championship title at the age of 15, your first senior national champion title. So you were competing with people who are above the 18 years of age and maybe more than even double your age. What age did you start shooting? How did you balance education and sports? And what were the hardships that you faced as a young student?
So I started shooting when I was in the eighth grade. So I was about 13 years old. And it all happened by chance. I mean, my family never pushed me into the sport, though I come from a shooting background. My dad being an Arjuna awardee and India's first gold medalist at the Commonwealth Games. But it was never given that I would take up sports. In fact, I had never done any competitive shooting before. Accidentally, I got into the sport and things turned out well. I think just the first year of my training, I became the junior national champion. And 2 years later, I became the senior national champion. I hadn't even completed 15 years of age. And the senior category is age 21 and above. So I think the average age that I was competing with was about 30 to 35. I think what always worked in my favor was I wasn't intimidated by anyone. I always focused on what I was supposed to do. And there was never a ceiling. I mean, there was never how well I could shoot. Sky was the limit. So I just focused on what I'm supposed to do. I stuck to that, and I enjoyed adversity. So if things are fine, anybody can do well. But I think it's when the going gets tough that only the selected few who can deal with the situation can override the tide. So in qualifications, I was fine. In shooting, the top 8 enter the finals, and then the final happens. So it was given in my head. All I have to do is enter the top 8, and once the final starts, once the heartbeat goes up, that's when people will start making mistakes, and I just have to capitalize on that. I don't have to do anything special. So I think it's just I think the way I was brought up. So I think all that helped, and yeah.
So great. I think what comes out of this is how you've lived in the present with focus on the task at hand, which of course we will come again at a point later.
In fact, an interesting thing, and post I started shooting, I started doing better at my studies. So people have this thing that once you start taking up sports, it's either sports or studies. But I was always a decent or above average student. But once I started shooting, I was amongst the top 5 in my class. So that's I think one of the most interesting bits about my life.
That's fantastic. I think, every sport teaches you a lot of life skills, as well as, a lot of skills to be organized in general day-to-day work. But again, I'm going to come back to that later, because I'm sure a lot of people want to know about that in more detail. Coming to Hina, brought up in Patiala, being a dentist by education, to becoming world number 1. Hina, tell us, at what age did you start shooting, and what has been your motivation? What drives you to achieve? And what is the secret that keeps you going? Everyone watching this would love to hear about your journey.
I started shooting when I was 17 years old, and my family is very passionate about guns and shooting. Though they haven't participated in the sport, but they're passionate about it. So, growing up in that environment, talking about guns, about sports, and stuff like that, I decided to just start shooting as hobby, because I was studying a lot during that time when I was in my 11th or 12th class. So I was preparing for my entrance exam to the medical college. So there was a lot of studying that was happening at that time, and it was sort of driving me crazy, just sitting at one place and studying the whole day. So I thought I need to step out, and because of my family, they understood shooting. So I thought I'll try shooting, and because it is a sport which I can do at home. I don't need to go to a playground or a pitch or anything like that. So it just was very easy to start this sport. So, but little did I know that it's going to be anything but easy. The more you get involved in anything, not just in shooting, you realize the more you learn, the less you know. And sometimes we read one book about one topic and we think, oh, I know it all. But things which actually drive you, which inspire that passion out of you, I think those are the things which also have a very humbling effect on you. You feel the more you learn, the less you know. And that is what keeps driving you. I want to learn a little more. I want to learn a little more, till a time comes and you realize that you've spent so many years in it, and you still feel like a student. I think for me, the journey has been that of a student. Shooting has been a very, very humbling journey for me. It was always, like 10 steps ahead of me. So every time I thought I did well, I also knew that there are things that I didn't do well. So my job was to enjoy what I've done well, but also look at what I could have done better. I think so. If you look at anything from with this glass, you can keep doing it for the rest of your life, and it'll still inspire you, motivate you, and keep you on your toes. So that's what the journey has been like for me.
One interesting thing I'll tell you. So in 2009, I remember this very distinctively. We were having lunch and I asked Hina, so, what's your, because you're also studying medicine, and what's your future with the sport? I mean, so she said, no, sport. I mean, yeah, I'm going to leave it in about 6 or 8 months. I'm done with it.
6-8 years.
No. Okay. Said about a few years, I'm going to get done with the sport, first Olympics, and that's about it. And look where she is now.
That was my plan. That okay, I'm good at shooting, and I'm also good at dentistry. I was a distinction holder throughout my dentistry, and I got the government seat. No sports quota or anything. just to tell our students who are watching this that it's possible to do sports and study at the same time. So my idea was that I'm going to shoot for a few years, 6, 7, 8 years, maybe go to the Olympics, win a medal and then just go back to my dentistry. But I just kept going deeper and deeper into it.
Oh, that's great. I think it's very well said, what you just mentioned, that the more you learn, the less you know. And I also feel that it's all about lifelong learning. If you strive for perfection, you will catch excellence somewhere on the way. Also, one more other point to note over here is Hina started shooting at 17, and Ronak won his first national senior champion title at the age of 15. So it's never too early or it's never too late. It's all about the intention, the goal, the process, hard work, focus, and discipline that matters. So I think that's a great point that we get to know over here.
Yeah.
Now coming to Ronak, I think not many will know this point, but Ronak, your transformation from a Commonwealth gold medalist, and you were at your peak at that time, and numerous other national and international achievements, to giving up your career as a shooter to coach your wife, Hina. How did you come to that decision? And we would love to know more insights on that front, on how your journey has been as a coach. You have also mentioned to me that on the range, you all are not a couple. You all are purely shooters or sports persons. You all both have your own minds and goals, and of course, many difference of opinions. So, how does everything work for you as a husband and as a coach?
So it wasn't a conscious decision to shift roles. It was just that the 2012 Olympic qualification came as a pleasant surprise for us. Both of us were training under the same coach, and for certain reasons, the coach couldn't be with us all the time. And Hina's a person who will do things either perfectly or she'll not do it. So she wanted someone to train her, be with her at all times. And we were great friends. We had a similar way of working. Our techniques were almost the same. So I think just we started working together. I started helping her initially, and then we started getting some amazing results. I started enjoying this new role of a coach. Of course, I mean initially it wasn't easy because more than the techniques, your minds have to match. The frequency has to match. So that took some time getting used to. But it was just that we had such a big mountain in front of us, this Olympics. Both of us were new to it, and yeah, I mean in India things are not very streamlined. So the support and everything comes, but at quite a late stage, and you don't want the athlete doing all of those administrative works and stuff. So I got into this role, and as Ina said, the deeper you get into something, it just keeps pulling you in. So I just got pulled in to a point where we started delivering some great results, and we started enjoying our role, and we became a team. So and as we got more and more successful at it, we just kept going on. Also then we got married, and being married, living together at all times, shooting such a mental sport. In spite of having the best equipment, you're being very good at your technique, one small doubt in your mind can just ruin your performance. So that gave me an added advantage, being Hina's husband and also coaching her, my own experience of 15 years at that time. So it all turned out good for us. Now coming to the second part of a husband being the coach, a lot of people in fact told us that it's going to fail and it's not going to work. People clubbed it as us going for these pleasure trips abroad instead of actual competitive things. But the result told it all. And both of us, I think what attracted us to each other in the first place, was our competitive spirit. So when we went to the range, it didn't matter to me whether Hina was my wife or girlfriend or whoever, and it didn't matter to Hina who I was. I wanted to get the best out of Hina, and Hina wanted to get the best out of me. So when we were at the range, to the point, Hina had told me that I'm not going to allow you to be with any other shooter. I'm not going to allow you to be on your phone, to talk to anybody. If you're
Yes, I
going
had to sit him down and
Yeah.
said,
Yeah, we have to set rules.
You have to give me a time period that where you won't be coaching anyone else, where you will not be on the phone, where you will not be talking to anybody else. I want you to see my every shot, note it down in the diary, take the data, and talk to me and tell me what to do and push me. And I don't have any problem, somebody trying to distract me. Say if he was trying to make my shooting a little tougher, he would try to distract me or give me higher goals, something which is difficult to achieve. But at the same time, I also get inspired if my coach is also putting in that much hard work. Sometimes when you're tired as an athlete, you look at your coach and you're like, okay, this guy is putting in the effort for me, he's standing with me, So it just drives the shooter or the athlete also to deliver. You know, the team is important. If your team is sort of distracted, you know, is talking to other people at the field of play, it just takes that fighting spirit away from you.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like it's as good as while we were at the range, I owned Hina and Hina owned me professionally. So I mean, yeah, absolutely no compromise on this, and yeah, that's how we worked, and I think that's the reason why most of the most professionals who are also in a relationship, and that's why there's this tag that, you know, if you are a husband wife or a boyfriend girlfriend, then you will not be able to perform well. But it was different in our case.
I think it's fantastic. And, of course, it comes across clearly that y'all are perfectionists in whatever y'all do. And, how you said that you set rules, when you're on the range, being very, very professional in terms of coaching and as a student in terms of Hina. So I think if we compare with everyone else in general life, I think we all need to learn how a couple should support each other, motivate each other, and always, help each other in performance in terms of setting goals and giving a positive feedback as well as accepting a positive feedback. So I think if you're I'm just trying to compare shooting with general life
I
and
can
how
give
it helps. Yeah.
for example, if out of the two, one person is say trying to lose weight and the other one is just eating whatever he or she wants and in front of that other person, so it becomes very difficult for that person to stick with his routine. Similarly, if somebody is trying to adopt a new habit, you know, wake up in the morning or go to the gym every day, but every time he's or she steps out of the door, you know, the other person is
Being
having
lazy,
fun, is having fun, you know, you don't feel like going. So I think um, as family members or as couples, we need to help each other and show our solidarity towards our family members or even our kids or our parents, whoever is trying to
Achieve
achieve
something.
something.
Exactly. I think that's very well said. We have to support each other in every endeavor.
And especially like times like these, yeah, everybody has to be there for the other one.
Exactly. I think that's a great tip for everyone. Now let's come to more specific questions about training, and it's open to both of you, so you all both can answer as you all are comfortable. So, what goes behind creating a champion? If you can tell us in detail about your daily training schedules, the physical aspect, the shooting aspect, the mind or the mental aspect, nutritional aspect, as well as any other factors that play an important role. Also, what is your daily routine like? How many days a week do you all practice? How many hours a day do you all practice? And how is this whole process undertaken?
I think the practice keeps going on for 24 hours. I think it's, you may not see me on the range, you know, with a pistol in my hand, but even when I'm not doing that, there are other ways I may add to it. There have been times where I go to the range, I go all the way to the gate of the range, but today I don't feel like shooting, and I have come back not shooting, but say working on my recovery, working on my mental skills, visualization, breathing. There are so many things you can do, and then taking care of how much water I have, what nutrition I'm having, how much sleep I'm having, what sort of workout I'm doing, is my form right, are my muscles okay, do I have any trigger points, do I need to do some cryotherapy, do I need to take some pills, vitamin pills, all of these things. And then the nutrition is different. Then you have your team members, which include physiotherapists, nutritionists, your coach, your performance coach, the trainers. So I think the training keeps going on. I'm telling you, the training keeps going on. Like even if I want to watch TV at the end of the day sometimes, but I know I'll get late and I have to sleep because I need to clock so many hours of sleeping time. But as I said, you know, the first thing is I would like to put it out there because I know that a lot of parents would also be watching this. The parents start from the other end of the spectrum. You know, they decide for the child, I want my child to be good at this. And now let's start forcing him to do all these things that I said. So I don't want anybody to think that because I'm telling you what I do, now you try to copy paste it for your child and make him do all those things that you think are right for him. I did all those things for shooting because shooting is something I was lucky enough to find for myself that drove me this way. I even tried swimming before this. I tried athletics before this, but nothing drove me like shooting. So if my parents had forced me to do all these things for those sports, it wouldn't have given these results. So first of all, I think the first step is parents letting their children be. A child may not be good at sport, he may be good at singing or music or art. Is it any less? No. Are they going to do great things in their life? Yes. So it really depends on the parents having that eye to see what their children enjoy, what inspires them. Sometimes, and the other thing is, you know, we have an academy also. Sometimes parents come and they're like, oh, but he showed interest in this for some time, and after 2 months now he's showing interest in something else, so I have to put my foot down, he has to do this. So it happened with me also. I would like to like tell everyone that it happened with me also. For 1 year I was playing tennis, the other year I was doing something else because my friends were doing something else. So we are going through normal phases in life. We are trying to see everything and trying to weigh it out, and just by chance your child will come across something that really inspires them, and all these things will start happening on their own without you even going after them.
I think what one has to realize is, all right, you said, Hina has won so many medals, I have won so many medals, but one has to understand that we've lost more than what we've won. Every champion in his life has always lost more than what he has won. And I also would like to believe that every champion in his life didn't start off that activity thinking or
That
expecting that I would be a champion.
Yeah.
I picked up the sport accidentally because I liked it. Hina picked up the sport accidentally because she found it, she was curious about it. And that is why neither our families nor us did things in the sport that we didn't like or didn't want to do initially. As you like something, you automatically start getting self-motivated, and then you do it because you want to do it. As long as the motivation is not intrinsic, it's never going to work. The more you push someone towards something, he's going to get repelled by it. So I think the best that we can do is figure out in life what we want to do, and be it whatever it is, and then let it come from within.
Yes. So I think, it's very well said that, we have to let the child figure out the passion, let them try various activities, sports. It can be sport, it can be music, it can be dance, it can be a passion of their liking. And then as parents or as a community, we need to support that decision, and give them wings to achieve their dreams in that particular field. So I think it's very well put, Ronak and Hina. Coming back again to your training a bit, especially the mental side of it, because a lot of times, people do put in a lot of efforts, but as shooting is of course more of a mind or a mental sport also, how do you focus to be in the present without any distractions? To be very more specific, when you're in the finals, in the last stage of the shooting, there is loud music going on, people are cheering, there's so much distraction, countries are cheering for their teammates. How do you keep all that out of your mind and focus only on your process and only on your shot?
I think where most of the people get it a little wrong is they think that it is something that is like knowledge. You just tell me how to do it, and the moment you tell me, I'll be able to do it. Where what people don't understand is like it's going to gym. It's like training a muscle. Training your mind is like training a muscle. Your mind is a neuroplastic organ. It changes. The more you learn, the more you push it in one direction or in the opposite direction. There are actually physical changes happening in the brain. You could like cut a person's brain out and see that these changes have actually happened. So where people go wrong is they ask for a tip. The tip is very easy. The thing is that you have to put in that time and effort every day to meditate. And meditation is not say pranayam, or every meditation has a different goal. A meditation could have a goal of putting you to sleep better, so that you can sleep better, people with insomnia or stuff like that. Meditation could be to increase your focus. Meditation could be for someone going through depression to focus on their emotions and not act on emotions. Meditation could be an act of mindfulness, just being in the present and observing everything. The more you do, the better you get at it. What I have found to work for me is mindfulness, just observing everything, but not getting engrossed in anything, be it my emotions, be it my thoughts, be it my bodily sensations, or things out in the environment. So I observe everything, but I don't get entangled in it. Somebody might be doing a different sort of meditation where they just try to focus on one thing and tune out everything else. So as a shooter, I need to do both sorts of meditation. I need to be very aware but not engrossed, and I could also need a bit of focused attention where I'm focusing on one thing and I'm tuning out everything else. And the way I like to do it is approach my mind through my body. So when I want to come back in the present moment, say I'm thinking too much about the outcome or the future or the past or some thoughts distracting me, so I come back in the present moment using my body, where I'm standing. How does the ground feel like? What all am I hearing? I use all my senses: the taste on my tongue, the sounds I'm hearing, the smells I'm smelling, the sight that I'm seeing, and I would just look around the room. And I would use my breath to tell me that my body is right here. So breathing is something which keeps happening all the time. Like breathing is in the present, it's not in the future, it's not in the past. So if you focus on your breath, it gets you right in the present moment. And once I've done that, I just visualize the outcome I want to have, and then I let my body take over and execute it without meddling in it. So that's what we call zone in sporting words.
Fantastic. I think, the point that you mentioned, that, you have to be aware of what's going on around, as well as you have to keep yourself away from the distractions. And of course, that can only come with the kind of consistency and the.
I have explained it to you, but the thing is that
You have to practice it. Yeah,
you
it's not
have
going to come overnight. Yeah.
And this is a state. The moment you achieve this state, you wouldn't want to get out of this state. It is so calming to be in this state.
Right.
You wouldn't want to get out of it. So the more you practice, the more you like it.
That's amazing. Very well said, Hina. Now I would like to talk about another aspect of what kind of pressures you'll have to deal with, which could be personal or political sacrifices, which one has to make in the journey to the top.
So I'll tell you something. So this lockdown, I've actually enjoyed this lockdown, and I don't want this lockdown to ever end. The reason being that in the last 22 years of my life, this is the first time I have been home for this long. The max I get to be home is maybe 5 to 7 days. So imagine, I never had a group of friends in school, because you're always traveling so much in college. Throughout my college life, I was traveling so much. So yeah, you have friends, you have classmates, but you're never able to form the bond because you're not always there. Friends want to go out and have fun and go for a movie, or just chill. But we are not able to do that because next morning we have to wake up and go for training, or we need to have certain hours of sleep, or our food has to be a certain way. So we miss all of that. But the question is, would we want it any other way? No, because like I said, that motivation has to come from within. So we chose this path. So when people say that, there's so much of sacrifices involved, yes, when you look at from the other person's perspective, it's a lot of sacrifice. But to me, I love it. It's one of the coaches told me when I was about 14, 15 years of age, that his shooter asked the coach, why are you pushing me so much? Why are you trying to kill me, making me train so hard? So he said, the day you stand on that podium and see the flag go up, you will realize that it's all worth it. And this story was narrated to me by the shooter himself, who eventually became the coach, that this is what he told me. And it's only after winning the medal I realized that everything was worth it. So, even while I was coaching, I mean, people used to come and ask me, how are you okay being the husband, letting the wife take the center stage? I mean, what kind of a question was that? I think that was such a shallow thought. But before going to the Commonwealth Games 2018, where Hina won the gold with the new games record, just a week before leaving for the Commonwealth Games, my name was struck out from the names of coaches because I was the husband. Nobody realized that I was also the Commonwealth Games gold medalist myself. So, in fact, being in a relationship, being a husband-wife thing got just tougher for us. But we always looked at the eventual goal, and it was all worth it.
That's fantastic, Ronak. I think what you very importantly mentioned over here for parents and students who are also watching is, if you have a certain goal and if you want to reach somewhere, of course which has to be your passion and you have to like it, then all the sacrifices that come with it are very well worth it, because in the end, once you reach your goal, that is what is going to matter. And no satisfaction is better once you are standing on that podium, receiving medals for what you've worked hard for. So I think that's great, Ronak. Thank you for the great insights. Also, Ronak, you are training many state, national, international players through Ronak Pandit Shooting Center. Tell us more about the academy, and what is generally a good age to start shooting, and what is your personal philosophy in creating champions?
So I started the the thought of starting coaching or the academy came while I was also a player. I saw so many shooters being far more talented than me, but who were fizzling out in a year or so. And I realized the reason for this was, one, their technique. I mean, they were very talented. That's it. But nobody really knew what the technique should be like, or what was the difference between being process oriented or result oriented. So I saw a lot of talent getting wasted, and I thought, I have this knowledge, and I should share this knowledge. So this is how I started helping shooters at the shooting range without any formal fees or something. Then I started enjoying this, and I formally started the academy, the Ronak Pandit Shooting Center. And the idea was just was not to create international champions at that time. I mean, I started off slow. The idea was just to give the right knowledge to the shooters, so that they're not confused when they're shooting. So many times you would know that you're shooting and you're shooting well, and you don't know why you're shooting well. And so many times your shots are going all over the place, and you don't know suddenly what went wrong. And it's because of days like this that eventually people end up leaving the sport. So I thought, let's just give them the reasons why things are going well or why things are not going well. And that started giving a lot of results. People who took up the sport as hobby started becoming international shooters. Like, one of the shooters who came to me within 15 months represented the country at 4 World Cups.
Wow.
So it's like, if you start off with the correct knowledge, you have possibility of reaching the top. So this is how we started, and now we have academies all over the country. Now I have a tie-up with educational establishments in North India. We have shooting ranges in Bombay and Pune. The best of the best, which is at your own school in Kandivali.
Yes.
So, and I think the best age of taking up the sport is around 12. Yeah, from 12 to as long as you can stand.
That's great. I love, Ronak, how you are so process oriented in everything. When you started coaching, you didn't think of creating international medalists, but it was the process of giving the right knowledge, following the right steps. So I think what we generally read, like, take one step at a time, that is what you're actually following and proving it, how it turns out to be right. Also, because Ronak mentioned about the range in Kandivali, I'd like to take you over there directly. So that's the range behind me.
How badly I want to be there.
How could you just do that?
So I just use a virtual background. It helps in time traveling in times of lockdown. So I would like to tell everyone that we have made an international standard, Olympic standard 10-meter shooting range at Chhatrapati Nasi School in Kandivali, for which the complete design inputs from technical to the look of it are given by Hina and Ronak, and it is run, or it is Ronak's Academy, actually, I should say. So it is Ronak Pandit Shooting Center. And our aim is to create champions one step at a time, to follow the right process, and give wings for shooters who want to pursue their passion. So yes, thank you, Ronak, for supporting that range in Kandivali.
Pleasure's all mine. I haven't seen someone who's as enthusiastic and motivated about sports,
Yes.
studies, and just the overall development of kids
It was possible only through your effort.
through your effort and your
Yeah,
vision. Yeah.
yeah. It was you who made
We supported your vision. So it's,
Yeah.
it's the other way
it.
around.
We just
actually.
gave our ideas. It was you who actually put it to such a good use.
Thank you, Ronak and Hina. Thank you for the kind words. I'll like to take the last two questions, though you indirectly mentioned about them already. But what advice, and after these two questions, we will take audience questions. So I would request all the people who are attending this to put on the questions in the Q&A, and Ms. Sonali will be taking questions from the audience. So what advice would you give aspiring students who want to excel in sports? What are the key tips?
Aspiring,
I mean, students who want to excel in sports, what are the key tips they should follow when they're young, and what is the process?
never ever think about the outcome ever in your life. That is where the trap lies. This is the only trap which we as a society we're designed to think of the outcome. You know, when you go to the school, study well because you'll get grades, not study well because you'll get knowledge. You know, that's the first outcome. Grades will come very late. So we as a society just keep talking about outcomes with each other, and that is why our brains are designed to first tell me कि इससे क्या होएगा, फिर अगर अच्छा लगेगा तो then I'll do it. But that's not how it works. If in sport you're thinking about the outcome, you know, if I do this, I'll get a medal, or I'll get to stand on the podium, like how Ronak was saying. You know, I'm sure it painted a really nice picture for everybody, you know, how that child was there on the podium, and then in the end everything was worth it. But don't start your journey thinking about that podium. Never ever. That is where the trap lies. So you start your journey because you love doing it and you just want to learn it, and you are going to competition to see how good you are at it. That's it. You're not going there to compete with others. You're going there to compete with yourself. Am I better today than yesterday? If yes, you've come out a champion, even if you're the last person, last on the list in that competition. Next time, go there and try to beat yourself. That's it. That is it.
And like I said, you know, you will always lose more than what you will win. But it's only if you like doing what you are doing, will you succeed at it. So invest more time figuring out what you like than just pushing yourself through it just because you want to become a champion. It will get you name, fame, money, etc., etc. But it's not going to get you because you're not going to be successful in something you don't like doing. So invest time in knowing yourself and what your strengths are.
That's great advice. I think every child needs to know their strengths and not think about the outcome, but in fact, give more hard work, be passionate about what they're pursuing, and give the best in the process, which will eventually lead to the outcome.
Yeah.
And I think last question from my side is, what is your advice to parents and family whose kids or a family member are pursuing some sport?
Don't make your child live your life. I think that's the first opening line I would like to say. And your child everybody is born with a certain skill set, and till they do not explore the world, till they do not explore different activities, they will not know where their talent or the skill set lies. So expose them to different activities that life has to offer, and that's about it. And then let the child figure out what he likes. Do not push the child into a certain sport. Say for example, cricket is great, you'll have a great future if you become a good cricketer. But if you don't, you will end up leaving cricket and you will have wasted resources and that much time in your life. So expose your kid to wide variety of things life has to offer, and let the child decide for himself, irrespective of whether he's good at it or not. Eventually he will end up being good at it. He's not going to be born with all that one requires to win.
Right. I think Hina and Ronak, all your tips and advice from the questions I have taken up have been fantastic. And this is from someone who have achieved the best and the highest recognition one can get in the world. So I think this has been very, very helpful and, an eye opener in many senses. I'd like to now invite Ms. Sonali Gandhi, who will take audience questions. So over to you, Sonali ma'am.
Thank you, Sujay bhai. We're particularly inspired by you. I mean, we know about you, we've heard about your feats, Ronak and Hina, and we are really tremendously inspired by each of the points that you have made in answer to the questions that Sujay bhai has presented to you. A lot of our attendees have questions on their minds too. I'm going to try and do justice to those which will merit a different response from what you have already shared. Because I do notice a few questions here seem to only want a repeat or reiteration of a couple of facts. So may I request attendees then to watch the recording of this webinar, which will be uploaded on YouTube later, if it's just a question of needing to be reminded about something. Or maybe you're asking a question because you missed out on some detail, but it has already been covered. On that note, one of the questions I'd like to present to you first is about your experience at the Olympic Village. How did it actually feel being there? For almost everybody attending here, that's only a dream or a fantasy. How did it feel for you to actually be there?
It was overwhelming. It was really, really overwhelming. My first Olympics, I was 22 years old.
22.
I was 22 years old, 5 years into shooting, 5 years into picking the gun, just 3-4 years of actually international shooting. So, and I was this small girl, 5 feet 3 inches, not a lot of muscles, a shooter's body, not a boxer's or an athlete's bodies. And then I saw all these big athletes with amazing physiques, like they could just lift you and throw you out of the window. And I went to the gym and I was looking for a 1 kg dumbbell. It's very funny, I know. But my pistol is 1 kg. So I just wanted to, do some holding and isometric holds with that 1 kg. So they said, we don't have 1 kg.
It's too light.
It's too light. I said, where do the dumbbells start from? They start from 5. And they went all the way up to 120, I think. So I think nobody would have seen a dumbbell of 120. So I've seen that. And then when I was doing my exercise, so I thought, okay, there's no dumbbell, so I'll do it with the TheraBands, which I had. So I was exercising with my TheraBands. I was doing my stability exercises on the Swiss ball and Bosu ball. These are all the weird exercises that only shooter would be doing. Then passes this girl whose legs were taller than me. I said, this is it. I need to get out of here because I don't want to feel intimidated before my match. I'll do all my exercises in the room or maybe just run out. So yeah, it was a very different experience.
And I think I'll quickly run you through an Olympic Village. What is an Olympic Village like? It's like a huge township. It's nothing different than that. So you've got multiple buildings and then you've got this one place which has like a clubhouse, which has your video games and some recreational activities along with a gym and then there's a dining hall. So just imagine you're living in a huge township where there are 10-12 buildings. Olympic Village has more, but that's what it is like.
There's a bus to take you everywhere. Yeah. There's a bus to take you to the dining hall. Every day you go to the dining hall in that bus 3 times a day to have your breakfast, lunch, dinner. And you go to the gym. There are also some shops to buy something.
Yeah, that's one place where time flies.
Yes. Then they would have some people to come and perform for you, maybe sing for you, dance for you. So people enjoy their evenings. Yes.
You make it sound almost like it's a lovely resort holiday, but we know all too well what kind of sweat and blood has gone into making it there.
You don't get sleep.
Yeah.
You don't get sleep there because you're always thinking about your match. You're thinking if you've done everything right, if there's anything else you can do. Yeah.
Yes, of course. I think through your individual responses to this particular question, what was most evident is how not to let pressure get to you. Yeah. Not to be intimidated by the circumstances that you find yourself in, to continue to have that belief in your own ability to do well. And that has obviously done so good to you. Very, very inspiring for our listeners to learn from that rather than be influenced by what's happening around them. We have an attendee particularly interested in knowing what your advice to people is through sharing your planning to remain focused during this pandemic. Through your own example of how you intend to remain focused, we will get to learn.
So I would say that, the first 1 week of the lockdown, we went with the flow. We started watching a lot of television. We were glued to Netflix. We were sleeping late, waking up late, and all of it. Then we realized quickly that it's throwing us off a normal good routine. And what we did was we changed our routine to sleeping at 9:30, 10 latest, and getting up at 5 o'clock no matter what. So we used this lockdown to do all the things that were otherwise not possible to do in our normal lives, because you're just so busy traveling to work. You're just so busy actually working, catching up on work. You're busy socializing, and you're never able to do things to add skills to your own life. There's no value-added activity happening in day-to-day life. So we did all of those things. So we actually penned down a list of things that we always wanted to do but couldn't do. For example, I always wanted to read, but I just never got time to read. So I got down to reading. I got down to studying about the things that I wanted to study but could never do. We've always complained that there are too many competitions happening, but we never get time to train technically. So we went down now, because there's no competition happening. We went down to the training of fundamentals of the sport. So we use this time to just add skills to our lives.
I would also like to add that, a lot of people are feeling, signs of sadness or depression. And I think one of the reasons, few things may be causing that. Of course, one is you're always thinking about the future. Like I said, that's where the trap lies. You want to get out of your homes, and you want to go about your normal life, so much so that you're just visualizing that scenario over and over again. And the moment the present strikes, that this is where you are, it feels bad. You want to sit on the beach and enjoy with your friends and family, but the reality is so bad. So first of all, stop thinking about the future, accept the present, stay in the present. The other thing is, please do not spend your time on screens. The screens have a really lot of studies have been done where screens have sort of a negative effect on our psyche. They can lead to depression. And these days people are doing a Netflix marathon, which is really, really bad. The third thing is sticking to a routine. When we are going out or when we are working, we stick to a routine. We get up at this time, we do this. There's a structure to the day. If that structure is taken away from you, your subconscious doesn't have a cushion. It's always wondering like what's next, how can I entertain myself next. So the routine is a cushion in which the subconscious can just relax and make things happen automatically. So stick with the routine. The fourth thing that I would say is eat healthy, drink lots of water. Fifth thing, the most important thing, exercise. Exercise releases all the good hormones in your body, the dopamine, the adrenaline, and it tires you out. It sort of like calms you down so that you can think rationally without being agitated. So I think these 5 things, the first thing is stop thinking about future.
Yes, thank you. Very, very apt advice. You already shared that when you were answering some questions presented to you by Sujay Bhai. The zone that you mentioned then, it's a very desirable state to be in. And maybe it's during this period of the lockdown that we can best attempt to learn how to get into that zone.
Yeah.
A lot of our attendees seem to want to know in particular what kind of nutritional lifestyle you follow. They seem to ask about what kind of eating habits you recommend and how they would have consequence on the outcome of your performance.
So first of all, proteins is very important for any athlete. There's no prizes for guessing. First is protein. A lot of protein in your diet Non-vegetarians can have whatever they're having, but vegetarians should also try to incorporate proteins in the form of protein powders or soya chunks. Or you need to be aware that as vegetarians, especially if we have vegetarians, that you need to give extra importance to incorporating proteins in your diet. The other is vitamins. Vitamin B being very important, again, especially for vegetarians. The third thing, which I think is sort of like an epidemic, another epidemic that we are facing, but nobody knows about it, is vitamin D deficiency. Everybody is deficient in vitamin D, and deficiency in vitamin D just disrupts your calcium uptake. Calcium is needed for good muscle activity, bone strength. वो तो सबको पता है. But people don't know that calcium is also required for muscle contraction and relaxation. You may have more cramps, or you can get fractured very easily if you're not having enough vitamin D. So people keep uptaking calcium, but they never take vitamin D. So vitamin D is really important. Lots of water. Water is really, really important. So 3 to 4 liters of water is what you should be drinking, but people have like 500 ml or maximum 1 liter, and they say this is enough. It's not enough. So have lots of greens, lot of roughage. They give you all the antioxidants. They keep your digestion well. And vitamin C is another. I think all the vitamins. just track whatever you're having and make sure you know that you're sort of having a balanced diet. All the vitamins are going inside you. Magnesium, zinc, manganese, they're all required for good muscle health.
Thank you so much. This reminds me of the webinar that Ms. Meghna Thakkar had taken us through, ensuring that we did, intake all these vital vitamins and nutrients that you are stressing on right now. Do go back to looking at that recording if you need to be reminded about those details. A lot of children play and excel at sports, usually until they are in the 10th or 11th grade, and then it's because of academic pressure that they may quit, or because they need to focus on college acceptances and so on. What is your advice to students, particularly their parents, in this kind of a situation?
I think to excel in life, we have to lead balanced lives. Any activity done beyond a particular point will lead to inefficiency. So I'm not saying that, okay, you need to play 5 hours or do so many other things, but there has to be a balance in life. You have to do different things. So obviously after 10th, 11th, you have to look at, you have to give more importance to studies because of board exams and entrance exams and all. But you also have to prioritize what you want to do in life, and accordingly give importance to either sports or extra other activities, socializing, etc. And then go about it. And like I said, one of the reasons, apart from academic pressure, is also when when parents see that my kid has been pursuing this activity since so many years, but he's not gotten any achievement out of it, so it's not worth it. That is also one of the reasons why a lot of parents force the kid to give up on that sport or activity. So I think invest in a good coach. If you are, there's a lot of misconception that, oh, right now my kid is only beginning, so let's just get him a local coach, and once he reaches the top, then we will think about getting a good coach or good equipment or whatever it is. But how is the kid going to reach the top level if he doesn't have good equipment or good training? And if he's reached the top with poor equipment or poor training, then why do you need to change at all? Because he's already reached the top. So invest early in the future. You can't say, first I'll put my first I will give him an old car for an F1 race, and once he wins the F1 race, then I've given him an F1 car. It's never going to happen. So I think those are things one needs to keep in mind, and I think Hina can add on to it. Entrance exams and Olympics. In fact, interesting thing is Hina finished her got her degree after the Olympics. Like while her exams were actually going on, she was in the Olympic Games.
I think for me, both sort of complemented each other. I think I became a better student because I was shooting. I could concentrate better on my studies. And similarly for shooting, and if you again it comes down to passion. If you're passionate about something, you will find time to incorporate it in your day. You would not waste your time just watching movies, sitting in front of the TV, or just Facebooking or Instagramming. So you have to prioritize, and if the child is passionate about something, it will come automatically. And we as parents, I think we need to motivate them, talk to them, and reason with them rather than forcing them out of something or forcing them into something.
Okay, thank you for that. Very, very practical and relatable tips right there. We have somebody who would like you to uh, explain how much do you attribute talent versus practice or hard work. There is a 10,000 hour rule to become a world champion in something.
I will tell you. There's this saying that hard work beats talent if talent doesn't work hard. So there's your answer. So
I think you should repeat it again.
yeah, hard work beats talent if the talent doesn't work hard. It's very easy. It's just a matter of time. So the talent may open the first door, and we as coaches, would want to find those ultra talented students. But not every talented player comes with that mindset of putting in those hours, of discipline, of persistence, and just going about it. And there was this boxer. I forgot the name, and somebody told me, we shared a common physiotherapist, and that physiotherapist told me that boxer says, मैं इतना talented नहीं हूँ ना, तो मेरे को hard work करना पड़ेगा सर, तो मैं इसलिए 2 घंटा extra दूंगा. So that guy is in the Indian team. I forgot the name. I would have shared the name. So hard work will always win in the long run. Always win. No athlete who is a legend today, if you go through their autobiography or you come to know about them, they may have been talented, but they are legends because of the hard work they put, not because of the talent they had. They are legends because of the hard work. The willingness to go that extra mile where nobody could go.
Your first medal comes because of the talent, but every medal after that is going to come because of hard work.
Yeah. It'll open that first door, but not after that.
Thank you. That was a very comprehensive input about what is it that legends are really made of.
Yeah.
We have somebody. How many lapel pins have you collected from Olympic Games?
I have no idea. I did get some, but I just put them all in a box. My first Olympics, I was very excited about those, but then the next Olympics and then the other games that I went to, it was in the background. I think it was more exciting in my first Olympics. I don't know.
I think that's a very good like a PR or making friends sort of a tool. You go, you exchange pins, and then you
But
ask each other.
I wish I could exchange a pin with Roger Federer. वो PR अच्छे वाले athletes के साथ करने का मौका नहीं मिलता है. Yeah, so it was fun, but I don't know how many I have.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it was fun. I can see the kind of joy it's bringing to your face just talking about it.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us. Can adults above 40 age for children to be initiated into it would be about 12? And then you said as long as one is able to stand. But since we have somebody particularly asking, is above 40 too late to start?
Not at all. In fact, my father got selected for his last international competition at the age of 52. And he started shooting when he was in his mid-30s. So again, if you are first, the reason to start anything should be that you like that activity. And as long as you can stand and as long as you can see, you can start the activity.
Yes.
Now, how good you will get at that activity will depend on the work you put in, will depend on the fitness that you have. But absolutely, I mean, I think in my own academy, the oldest shooter that we've had was 72.
Wow.
again, I would like to point out one thing, that this question also has a connotation of the future outcome. I would like to advise whoever this is that please do not think of the outcome. You come to the range, and I'm sure you will love the sport, that you will want to just keep
Yeah.
doing it, and you will not think about beating someone or being good in a competition. So just start, and you can start it at any age. You know, I mean, people don't think about buying a big car. You know, am I too late to buy a Lamborghini? No. So just start shooting.
Okay. Um, Unfortunately, owing to constraints of time, I will only be able to ask you maybe one or two more questions. Is that all right?
Yes.
So we have somebody who themselves as far as sporting ability is concerned, when they may not have access to infrastructure, whether it's in school or in their society. Not everybody is lucky to be a student at a Jamnabai Narsi campus or at a Chhatrabhuj Narsi campus. What then do people like that do?
Your certain parts of the questions were missed because the network wasn't
Repeat
so
that?
good. What I've understood is basically what can one do when they don't have access to good infrastructure, correct?
That's right.
Okay. So to be honest, we did not have good infrastructure. When I started shooting in 1999, there was the closest shooting range from my house. I was about 25 kilometers. So I had to put in that extra effort to travel on the weekends, and I had to study during the weekdays for school. So that's a practical problem. But today it's not that difficult. You just have to research. There are enough sports clubs and other arenas, multiple arenas in Mumbai and in other cities. There are a lot of shooting ranges which have mushroomed up. There are so many other sports facilities which have mushroomed up. I think it's all about researching and finding out where the closest one is. And today there's also there's if there's nothing available, then there's something you can try and learn online. Hina in fact started shooting online, so not all the advice given online is correct, but a lot of it is acceptable to start with.
I would like to sort of propose a solution. If they are asking for someone who's young, who's a child, they could always, when they have their summer holidays, they could take them to the nearest possible range where there's a good club. So, for example, I'll give them an example. We have a lot of people coming to Pune where we have our academy. We have an arrangement. It's a government academy, so the government has made some hostels where people can come and stay. And we, in our academy, be it in Kandivali or in Pune, we have the equipment available with us. So people who do not have the equipment can use the club equipment. So it's just about finding the nearest club to your area where they have the equipment, where they give you the technical know-how. And if you cannot go there for the whole year, say you could use the summer holidays or the winter holidays or the weekends to train. And then later, if you think you're good at it, you could buy your own equipment and do basic exercises at home. That's what Sujay has been doing when he was busy.
One last question, please. In a country like India, where cricket seems to be the sport that gets the most attention, what is your recommendation that we as a country or as individuals do to make other sports equally followed?
People keep blaming cricket for being so popular, but I think there's a lot. So I'll talk from two perspectives. One is the athlete spectator perspective, and the other is from the administration perspective. I think the administrators have a lot to learn instead of complain. You can always cribbing how somebody else is doing better than you. I think it's just easier to learn what they're doing and start doing it and become as good. So I think and from the audience, spectator, and the athlete perspective, I don't know much about football. It might come as a shock to a lot of people, and that's because I have not played football, because I did not have a football field near my house, so I never played football, and I'm not interested in football, so I don't read about football. So if our society starts playing different sports, they will understand what the sport is. They will get attracted to the sport, they will get interested in the sport, and then they will want to read about the sport. The moment they want to read about the sport, see, everything is a business. The media houses will start reporting more about the sport. So it's a cycle. You want to make a sport popular, create grassroots facilities, get people to experience it, and then it's the ball has started rolling.
Yeah, it has to come from the administration, though. I think they could also
You have to involve masses.
Yeah, you could give the TV rights for free. Let the sport be there on the TV. Let people come to know about the sport, because for cricket, everybody knows what's a sixer, what's a four, what's an LBW. Everybody knows that, even if they don't follow cricket. But for shooting, they don't even know how many ranges there are, because it's not visible on the TV. So we have to the responsibility lies both with the athletes and with the administration to make the sport popular, answer questions, tell them more about it, and then it will start rolling.
I think
Thank you.
before Sonali ma'am concludes, I would just like to say that Ronak and Hina, what I have personally learned over this last 1 hour and 20 minutes is the complete positive approach that you have to everything in life, positive, process oriented, and a very practical approach. There were so many challenges and questions that people posed, but for everything you had a very positive outlook without any complaints. So that also shows that people who want to achieve, there are obstacles in front of them, but there's always a way to overcome those obstacles. Whereas with someone who has everything and still keeps complaining, that's not the right way to go about it. So I think your positive approach is very contagious, Ronak and Hina, and I hope myself as well as a lot of the people who are watching this takes that positive approach to see everything in that positive light. Be it the lockdown, be it the opportunities in the future, or be it success. So I think that's really going to help each one of us.
Thank you so much, Sujay. We can choose to look at the glass half full or glass half empty.
That's right.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, both of you, Mr. Ronak, Ms. Hina. The honesty and humility with which you've shared your story, your journey, has been very inspirational for everyone.
Thank you.
Ronak, we particularly liked the point you made about, how you enjoyed adversity. That is a super takeaway. Sujay has just reiterated it. No matter what the circumstances, particularly nice mindset to tweak, shift our perspectives towards. You spoke about how champions have lost more than they have won. You emphasized on how vital intrinsic motivation is and how that can be nurtured further. I mean, you've given us many, many points, food for thought, and we will take them with a lot of enthusiasm, with the right attitude. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you. It was
the less you know. That was something very, very inspiring. The particularly single point that is the best takeaway, I think, for everybody, no matter what their situation, was the one about being focused, of being in the zone. You really did make that sound like a very desirable state to be in. Both of you together, the kind of exemplary points you have shared about what makes your personal and professional relationship work has been such a beautiful reminder to all. Teamwork being the most important takeaway, whether the team refers to a family unit, an institution, or a country at large. Focus and set your heart and mind towards. Sujay Bhai has always stressed on the importance of focus, determination, effort, and this webinar is just one of the many indications of his passion for sports and the zeal with which he wants the benefits of the same to be within the reach of as many people as possible. We can't express our gratitude enough for this infectious trait of yours, Sujay Bhai, with which you have brought iconic figures like Mr. Ronak and Ms. Hina to our homes through this webinar, and many other luminous figures through the many other webinars we've had. Thank you so much for leading with your own personal example. Thank you once again to everybody behind the scenes who contributes to making these webinars possible. There have been many appreciative comments coming in, including through the Q&A during this particular webinar. And thank you to our attendees for your appreciation. It fuels us to bring you more such meaningful experiences in your purview. Have a wonderful day ahead, everyone. Thank you once again to everyone involved. Have a lovely day.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Yeah.